Good morning again. Great to have sixth grade here live in Bell Hall, and it's been a while since we've gathered here. And I know this is your first time as middle schoolers attending a middle school chapel, so welcome. Right. I have a few announcements. We have a couple of secondary school visits, lunch visits. Today we have Ms. Sam Jordan from Westtown School visiting us. So we'll be gathering outside on the porch of Gresh. So if you're an 8th grader, or even if you're a 7th grader, you should plan to attend that. And tomorrow we have a visitor, admissions officer from Ethel Walker School, which is an all-girls school in Connecticut, and she will be on campus. Middle school parents' night will be on Thursday. It'll begin at 7:15 p.m. and go until 8:30. And I've sent the schedule to the families, but parents, you will also have access to a printed schedule when you arrive on campus, and it'll be outside Bell Hall. And so please be on the lookout for the schedule. 8th grade leadership retreat will take place on Friday. We are really looking forward to that, spending the day with our 8th graders. And that will start at 8:15 and end at 3:15. And it will be at the Milky Way Farm, which is just down the road from here. So please plan to arrive by 8:15. We will start the retreat at 8:30, and then we will finish the retreat, and then you can get picked up sometime between 3:15 and 3:30. Please bring your advisory journal with you, because we'll be doing some journaling that day or even the day prior to that. And also bring your lunch and water bottle and a pencil or a pen. All right? Wonderful. Any other announcements? Teachers, Mr. McManus? All right. You know, when I first came to Montgomery School, to visit Montgomery School 5 years ago, the first person I met when I arrived on campus was Dr. Conroy. Even before I saw Mr. Dixon or Ms. Kirkner in the front office, the first person I met was Dr. Conroy. She was visiting Montgomery with Mr. Conroy and Cole, and she had just accepted the position of school counselor. And so we both came into Montgomery the same year. She probably got here a few days before I did. So this is her 5th year here at Montgomery School. 2 words come to mind when I think of Dr. Conroy. The first word is gift. She is a gift to Montgomery School. And what she offers to us is a gift to all of us. From a pre-K kiddo to an 8th grade student, from parents and teachers and administrators, she is there for all of us, to listen to us, to offer us counsel, to support us, to give us encouragement, and that's a gift she gives selflessly to this community. The second word that comes to mind is the word wise. Some of us get to work pretty close with Dr. Conroy. One of the things that I found, and I'm sure others would agree, is, any situation that you present to her, anything that you discuss with her, she offers a lot of wisdom. It can be the most complex situation, and she knows the right thing to say to the right person at the right time. And I'm sure Mr. McManus and Ms. Murata would agree with me. And I'm sure the teachers who have seen Dr. Conroy in action. So there is a lot of wisdom that we receive from Dr. Conroy. And I know you are in for a treat this morning as she steps up to the stage to offer her words of wisdom. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Conroy to the stage.
Good morning. Mr. Rajrigam, I don't know that I can live up to all those kind words, but that was beautiful, so thank you. Good morning, Montgomery School. It is so wonderful to be with you this morning and to get to spend this time with you. And I want to start with a really important question for you. It's up there already. What in life is important to you? How do you know when something is important to you, that you value it? When you say one thing, but you do another, what does that tell people about your values? These questions I just asked are all very big questions, and they can seem both overwhelming and quite simple to answer, all at the same time. So I want you to imagine that you are on a deserted island. All of your basic needs like food, water, and shelter are accounted for. I want you to take a moment and think about who would be the one person and what would be the one possession you would bring with you in this situation. And I'd love to have a few people share and let me know who you would bring, what you would bring, and why. Go ahead, Riker. Say it nice and loud for us. Okay, so your father. And what about a possession, an item? You want to think about it a little bit? Okay. Luke, I saw your hand. Do you want to share? Go ahead. A boat? Okay. Good thinking. Do you have a person you would bring that comes to mind? It doesn't have to be a human. Who would you bring? His gecko. We've all met his gecko. If you haven't yet, you're in for a treat if you get to. Let's take two more. Annabella? Okay, awesome. And Malia? Your mom, good. Water, okay, excellent. These were all really, really great ideas. So, knowing who and what you value in life can help you make decisions and plans that you are comfortable with. So we're gonna play a little game together right now. All right, so you are gonna be presented with a series of choices. The choices will start off being pretty simple, but they may get a bit more difficult as we go along. For this game, if you agree with the first choice that I give, you're gonna stand up. If you agree with the second choice, you're gonna stay seated. So I encourage those of you that are watching from the classroom or at home, and even those of you in the back, to join us in this game. So here's your first decision. Would you rather wear clothes that have patterns all over them or clothes that don't have patterns? So if you would rather wear clothes that have patterns, stand up. If you don't want patterns on your clothes, stay seated. Okay, I see a few. All right, everybody can sit. Let's do another one. Would you rather be on stage or in the audience? So if you would rather be on stage, stand up. In the audience, stay seated. All right, everybody can sit down. We're gonna do a few more. Would you rather be an athlete or an artist? So an athlete, stand up. An artist, stay seated. Everybody can sit down. There's no right or wrong with either of these, it's just personal preference. So let's try two more. Would you rather do something with others or work on something alone? So work with others, stand up. Work alone, stay seated. Okay, everybody sit down. Our final one. Would you rather be healthy but poor or very sick but very rich? So healthy but poor, sick but rich, stay seated. All right, sit down. Thank you guys for doing that and participating in that. So for some of you, these decisions may have become more difficult towards the end. People make decisions every single day. Many decisions are easy to make and they seem unimportant, but sometimes they're more difficult. What is important to us, or what we value, influences everything else that we do. And for this reason, it's important for people to know their values, to know what is important to them. Knowing what we value allows us to make choices we can live with and that are aligned with who we are as individuals. So Roy Disney, who is the nephew of Walt Disney, and he's a former Disney executive, he said, "When your values are clear to you, making decisions becomes easier." And I wholeheartedly agree with that. So what exactly are values? Values are the basic and fundamental beliefs that guide or motivate our attitudes and our actions. They help us determine what is important to us. In a narrow sense, values are that which is good, desirable, or worthwhile. They are the motive behind purposeful action, and they are the ends to which we act and we behave. So I want to tell you about Tony Robbins. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of Tony Robbins before. Okay, a few, and that's okay if you haven't. So he's an author and a life coach for people all over the world. He's worked with US presidents, he's worked with musicians like Green Day and Aerosmith, he's worked with athletes like Serena Williams and members of the Golden State Warriors. But he also works with people that are less well known, everyday people that are just trying to better themselves and to learn and to grow. He puts on a ton of seminars throughout the world, and I love what he has to say about values at one of his seminars. So let's take a listen.
Here's what values are. Values are the emotional states that we believe are most important for us to either experience or avoid. So values are the emotional states that we believe are most important for us to either experience or avoid. Let me show you what I mean. What you value determines what you focus on. If your number one value in life is security, I guarantee you know where every exit is in this building. You looked around and checked it out. If your number one value in life is adventure, you don't even know how you got here. It literally is it controls what you notice or don't notice, what you do or don't do, what's important or not important. Every decision in your life is controlled by your beliefs and values.
All right, so I want to share two stories with you this morning that I think really illustrate somebody living into their values. Take a look. Does anybody know who this person is? Anya? Yep, exactly. This is Simone Biles. So Simone is a gymnast, as I'm sure many of you know. She has won a combined total of 32 Olympic and World Championship medals, and she is tied as the most decorated gymnast in the world. She is considered one of the greatest of all time. But what stands out to me most about Simone is not the number of medals that she's won, but it's something else altogether. I don't know if any of you watched the Olympic Games this summer, but I did. Raise your hand if you got to see any of it. Awesome, okay. I've always been so fascinated by the Olympics, and in particular, the gymnasts. I'm just in awe of what they can do, how they can move, their routines. I think they're amazing. Well, I remember watching Simone on TV this summer when she was at the Olympics, and she was incredible. But at one point in the games, and I'm sure many of you remember seeing this too, the news broke that she was pulling out of the games. There was a lot of speculation about why, and there were many opinions about it too. But what we soon learned was that Simone made a choice to step back from the games for her own mental health and well-being. Wow, what an incredible example of knowing what you value and acting on it. Simone faced an incredibly difficult decision: continue competing at the Olympic Games and risk hurting herself, or step back and take care of herself. In that moment, Simone illustrated the power of living into her values. Simone values her own mental health and well-being, and she did what she needed to do in that moment. Such an incredible example of values in action. The second story that I want to share with you has to do with this person. Does anybody know who this is? And I see some hands, John. Jackie Robinson, yeah. So Jackie Robinson, as I'm sure many of you know, was the first African American to play Major League Baseball in the modern era. This all started when he joined the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1947, and he started at first base. He was also the first African American inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. One of the things that stands out most to me about Jackie Robinson is his focus on 9 core values. These are values that Jackie both lived by and played by, and you'll see them up here on the screen. They include courage, determination, teamwork, persistence, integrity, citizenship, justice, commitment, and excellence. Jackie talked about these values, and he demonstrated these values in all that he did. Since Jackie's time, many baseball players still reference these values, and they incorporate them into their own practice. So the stories I just shared, they happen to be about 2 athletes, but I think it's really important to know that everyone should have an understanding of their personal values. Just this summer, the admin team at Montgomery, we spent a few hours exploring our own personal values and talking about the values of the school. It was a very powerful exercise. What we learned was that people have different values based on their life histories and what is important to them. And if you look up on the screen, you'll see some of the values that we shared and explored during our time together, and there's many up there. There's a lot of good to talk about. I found by listening to people share their values and why those things are important to them, you can learn a lot about someone else. You may not always share the same values as another person, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't respect them as a human being. After all, it really is our backgrounds and our differences that make us special and make us unique, and that is something worth celebrating. So during our time together as an admin team this summer, we talked about the work of Brené Brown a lot. And Brené Brown, she's a researcher, she's an author, she's a professor. I love her, she's amazing. She talks a lot about vulnerability, but she also talks about values. And one of the things that she often talks about is being in the arena and the courage it takes to do so. What I take the arena to mean when she's talking about this is dealing with a challenging situation or having to make a difficult decision. Early on in her career, Brené talked to Oprah about this, and she explained how knowing your values helps you when you enter the arena. So let's listen.
2 things you have to have when you go in the arena. Somebody who's willing to pick you up and dust you off when you get your butt kicked, which you will.
Yeah. A soft place to fall is what Phil always says.
Oh, a soft place to
soft
fall.
place to fall, yeah.
And the second thing is absolute clarity of values. You have to be sure what your value is. And so if courage is the value, you can choose courage or you can choose comfort. You cannot have both.
Yeah.
So if you choose courage and you're clear about your convictions, even if you get your butt kicked, you fail, you get pushed to the ground in the arena, you'll still understand why you're there.
Well, Maya Angelou says courage is the most important of all of the values because without courage, you can't practice any of the others.
Oh my God, I think that's true.
Yeah, you can't. You can't be truthful. You can't be gracious. You can't be anything without courage.
And you know what Oprah Winfrey says?
What?
Because I have 2 quotes on my bulletin board at home, one from Maya Angelou about courage, and the other one is from you, and it says, you get from this life what you have the courage to ask for.
Okay, so how do we determine our values? There's a few different ways, and I want to just give you one idea of how you could go about doing this. So the first thing you should do is write out as many significant words that have meaning to you that you can think of. This could literally be 50 or 100 words. The words might include things like family or friends, education, integrity, or truth. Next, you should group words together that have similar meanings. For example, if you have both truth on your list and honesty, they could be grouped together. The goal is to combine the words so you have no more than 10 overarching themes or words that describe your values. Next, you should spend some time thinking about what each of these values mean to you and in which situations you would use them. What situations might you potentially be in that would require you to lean on your values? I'm sure as middle school students, you could think of many. And then finally, you should post your values somewhere that you can see them each day. A visual reminder of our values helps us to keep in mind what is important to us and what kinds of decisions we should make. I want to point out that determining our values is a deeply personal experience and exercise, so it's definitely something you want to do alone and not so much with others. So a few things I'd love for you to remember from this talk today. 1, the things you value influence everything else that you do. It is important to decide on what you value and make choices and decisions based on that. Be respectful of what others value, but make your own choices. And your decisions may be tough, but if you stay true to yourself and what you value, you'll feel good about whatever you decide. And finally, I'm going to leave you with a quote from Elvis Presley, of all people, but I love what he says here. And it's not up there, I'm just going to read it to you. But he said, "Values are like fingerprints. Nobody's are the same, but you leave them all over everything you do." Thank you, Montgomery School, and I hope you have a wonderful day.